Pokémon is an incredibly successful franchise. Probably I don't need to tell this to anyone. Now, yes, the gameplay has its myriad of complexities and draws a crowd of its own, but what brought me to the franchise as a kid and what keeps me coming back is the world. Obviously, the Pokemon themselves, nearly every evolutionary line has somebody that calls it their favorite. I really like Cubone and Marowak. Well, nearly almost. But also just the setting. The locations, organizations, and technologies that make up the backdrops of the series are likewise fascinating. Originally, Pokemon was set in a fictionalized version of Japan. After the fourth generation of Pokemon games, though, each subsequent generation set the mainline games in a different fictionalized version of a different country, or in a different fictionalized version of a kingdom currently controversially within the same nation as another one of the regions, but that's a different subject for its own video some other day. The point is, ever since Unova was in Gen 5, people have wondered what part of the world Pokemon would use as inspiration for its next region, and lots of people have even designed their own versions of what those regions might look like. I myself wondered what it might look like if Pokemon took place in Australia, so I designed these. Disclaimer, I designed all of these artworks well before Scarlet and Violet came out. At the time, a dolphin Pokemon was a pretty novel idea. Now, not so much. This is part of why I wanted to get a video out so that when the next generation comes out and they introduce everything else that I designed, I won't feel as silly. Also, I know other people have done this concept with Australia before, but I have intentionally avoided looking at their works. Not out of any disrespect, it's probably great, but just to make sure that my ideas stayed as original as possible. They're supposed to be my ideas, and that's why I'd like to share them. The start of any Pokemon region is, of course, the starters. For my grass type, I realized that there had never been an invertebrate starter before, and wanted to go from there. Earlier designs for a grass-type kangaroo from when I was in high school would be recycled for a different Pokemon later on, given there have been a lot of mammalian grass starters lately. Considering starters need broad appeal to most children, I knew bees were not going to be an option, even though I personally love them. But an invertebrate that lots of people love, and I do as well, is a snail. Again, I reiterate, this was before Scarlet and Violet. The little one I decided to name Shellseed. None of the names are final, by the way, so if you'd like to recommend any, feel free to do so in the comments section. I like the idea of a seed that had just germinated, only rather than a sprout coming out of it, it's a little snail. I went for a little bit of a gentle personality, and while I have little knowledge about how stats should work, I think it would make sense for a snail to have less speed but more defense. Middle of the road is Snailump. This whole line is based specifically off of the giant panda snail, which is the largest species of snail in Australia. They're fungivores and live in the forest floor. The shell isn't exactly one-to-one, but it's more of a conceptual inspiration than a genuine recreation. The fully evolved form is called Truncopod. I wanted the whole line to have a painter theme as well, inspired by how snails can leave mucin behind like a paintbrush, and how sea slugs can lay eggs in spiral patterns. All three of my starters have a side theme of being a type of artist, especially clear when they're fully grown, and I think that these three might be psychic type. Not sure. For fire, I wanted to go with a platypus, which we haven't had an explicit version of in this series. I know a platypus would make more sense for a water type, but I had the idea for its poison, which is incredibly potent, to be accompanied with flame, making this a dual fire and poison type. First up is Puggling, with the name of a baby platypus being a Puggle, and kindling. Now, like I said, there isn't really a super clear Pokemon, but I know some people see the Psyduck, Lotad, and Magpie lines as platypuses, so I wanted to make sure mine didn't look like any of those. I also know only male platypuses are venomous, but I figure all of this line would have venom in their spurs, just to keep things consistent. The personality here would be a hardy and friendly type of Pokemon. The middle one is Platypane. Usually fire starter lines are bipedal and lithe, so I wanted to go against this tradition and make this whole line quadrupedal and stocky. Again, before Scarlet and Violet came out. I imagine it could learn quite a few different water-type moves. Not ones that require conjuration of water, but moves like Surf and Dive that just basically mean the Pokemon can swim. This would make them the first fire types to learn Surf, but there have been a lot of non-water types to do so, just in general Pokemon based off of animals or even people that should be able to swim. Lastly is Flambe. Not sure on the name, but I wanted this line to have a chef theme. The idea is the platypus can grill food on its tail. Platypuses don't actually have crossing lines on their tails like a beaver does, but this seemed like a fun idea. This could lend itself to a special move where you cook a held item like a berry or an herb, maybe doubling the effect or giving it a secondary beneficial effect if it's not something that you can actually double. Plombe specifically takes some inspiration from the Obdurodon, which is an extinct species of platypus and the largest platypus that ever existed, hence the head plate and larger size. And finally, for the water type, I went with an, at the time, I thought, original idea of a dolphin. Yeah, Finizen kind of stole the thunder there. Still, I think my original design has some qualities to it. Dollflap is a cute little dolphin with a rather vindictive side, but a perpetually pleasant smile, similar to real dolphins. Very cute, but kind of jerks. I love sonar and wanted to incorporate that into this line, with each stage being able to learn different sound-based moves. This line wouldn't be evil, of course, but I imagine it would hold grudges and cause problems. Probably if there was an anime, it would be the troublemaker of the three. Squallfin is where you can see the musician theme come together a bit. The blowhole serves as a sort of record or CD player. I had an idea that maybe whichever starter you pick would give you access to a different way to augment the gameplay. Maybe Shellseed would give you different visual options in text boxes or art for decoration. Pugling could give you new recipe options in a cooking side game, and Squallfin could let you customize audio tracks. Again, just an idea. Orchestra, which I actually think is a really good name, I believe is still mostly original. Kyogre is somewhat Orca-like, but this design, at least to me, seems different enough. Its eye spots connect to look like headphones, and I could see a unique move involving a form of DJing. Maybe call it turntable and switch out the opposing Pokemon with a chance to cause confusion? I don't know, just a concept. And those are the 9 starters. Now that's far from the only ones I made. I actually have drawn 150 original Pokemon, from basic first route normal type Wombats to legendary Ravens of Destiny. I've also made a Professor and gym leaders, and I'd love to show that if there's enough interest for it. But for now, I'm going to leave you with what I imagine Australian-themed region player characters could look like. Let me know if you'd like to see more, and if you've got any ideas for names of the Pokemon or a name for the region, feel free to comment. Until next time, though, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of the day.